Welcome to Introduction to Digital Drawing Part 3, presented by the Two Rivers Gallery. Today we'll be working on our fine detail work and shading and finishing off our picture. My name is Troy Lindstrom and I am an illustrator and digital artist. This is where we left off last time with the second pass at the portrait. Basic hairline in, face, pretty well finished. It just needs some touch-ups. First thing we're going to start with today was the hair. So we're going to start erasing thin lines out of the black block we placed down to represent the hair. Now we'll be doing 3 render passes on the hair. One to get the basic strands of hair down where we want them, how we want them to flow. Then we'll add and remove to create a shaded effect. So it'll go darker towards the back and lighter on the sides because that's where your light source is coming from. And then once those are down, the third render layer will be little details like strands of hair just sticking out, shade underneath those strands. It just adds more layers of detail to the hair, and the more layers of detail, the better it is. Now we're putting in a layer of thinner hair. We're starting to build up the strands on the top of the head and the side. If it doesn't look right, just add more black and then start erasing again to create the strands. Now this is sped up a bit. That's why the lines are going in so quickly, but we have time constraints. So, like I said before, it's add and subtract, add and subtract. You add black, and then you erase it out for the strands, and then you add more black, and start erasing. To create the look of realistic hair, strands got to go on top, go underneath. When they go underneath, add little bits of shading just to emphasize that the certain layers of hair is on top and certain layer of hair is underneath. That nice look of rendered hair. As you can see we put in a block of color underneath the strand of the ribbon of hair that stands out, and that's just to give it the picture depth. Now I found the hair was too high after looking at my reference, so I wanted to reduce the height of the hair. And that's what you do when you're in the final render. Just make sure that the hair is close enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. If just something doesn't look right, block it out, add new lines. Right now we're trying to get the proper flow of the hair from the reference. And once we get that flow down, then we can start adding more fine detail to the hair, darker areas to create depth, and lighter areas to create highlights. With hair, each strand is like random. It goes left, it goes right. And you have to have that in the picture. You can't just have them all one beside the other. Now we're going to add some hair that's just flying off from the scalp. You always see those little strands of hair when you look at someone's picture. And now we're going to go down to and add more thin lines. It's just using with your stylus, just a quick strike, a quick flick with your stylus to get that line. You don't want to put too much pressure. You want to keep the line thin. Now we're highlighting the strands that come off the side. Now in the inner part of the hair, we're going to try and keep that darker. And just little dots. Those little dots, what they represent is the hair fading back into the dark area. It's a way to add volume to the hair. As the hair fades back, it'll get darker, the lines will get thinner and shorter. Usually rendering the hair and other details takes several hours, and we don't really have the time to show it all in our video today. So I'm going to pop ahead where I have the hair finished, and we can move on to just adding more detail to the face and cleaning up the line work. Now we're working on tightening up the face. Now we're going to start cleaning up the face. All those little extra lines we're going to take out. We're going to add a little weight here, line weight here, just to create a little more depth. And if it doesn't work, take it out. Start again. You know, the reason the line work is so thin on the face, I want the face to be an area where the eye rests. I like to put so much detail in the hair, and when I have clothes with detail and render those too, the eye needs somewhere to rest or it gets overwhelmed, and then you can't concentrate on the picture at all. It's just a big mess of lines. So what I'll do is, with the face, I'll keep the line work minimal. I want the person's portrait to be recognizable, but when someone is looking at it, I want their eye to be able to rest on the face and then go back to where all the detailed work is, and they can examine that more. When it gets too much, they can go back to the face and rest their eye. So that's why there's a lot of white space in the face itself, and why there's a lot of dark line work on the outside, because it frames the face. Okay, now we're gonna fix these eyebrows. Again, it's just erase, add, little flicks with your stylus gets you that nice this strand of hair. And again, you're gonna have less thinner line weights on top, because that's where your light source is going to hit. so you're going to have more reflection off the top part. And then you're going to leave the bottom a little darker. And then go through and just add ends to all the little strands of hair in the eyebrows. Now we're going to clean up the line work on the eye. On the eyes, I really like to have light lines. If they're too heavy, then the eye, it's distracting. It pops too much. Iris in the pupil is fine. You want that dark. But the eyelid and the bottom of the eye, it's best to keep those lines light. Now we're going to start adding a little shading. What we're using for shading is something called a multiply layer. So we add a new layer, a clear layer, and then with the multiply layer, you can just paint over with a nice super light, just about white gray, and it'll give you that shaded effect. So we're putting shading into the chin. That adds more depth. Just under the lips. Refer to your reference as much as possible, but with shading, again, it's just the way the light hits the eyes or the face. So you can change it a little bit. It doesn't have to be exact. Right now, the shading is too heavy, so we're going to have to take some off the eyes. I don't want them that heavy. And by removing and then we have the lips here. Now you can see where the light is coming down and hitting the lips. So that's where we'll remove the shading that we're placing down now. And this is, you experiment with it. You fiddle with it. Doesn't look right. You erase and you add more. It's just experimentation. Now, as I say, we're using a multiply layer. So that's a shading layer. So here, I'll show you how we're going to do this. So we're going to make a second shading layer. And then we're going to go up to the tab, normal, and then we're going to change that to multiply. And you got to make sure that your brush color is not white, but just down from white, whatever color it is, just a really light gray. And then when you use the multiply layer, it doesn't cover any of your line work, but it allows you to place shadows a lot easier than it would be if you used a solid gray. Because if you use a solid gray on an upper layer, it's going to cover over your line work, and then you got to tweak it a lot more. With the multiply layers, it's easy. You just put down your shading wherever you want. If you want darker shading, you add another multiply layer. And now our portrait is complete. I would like to thank the Two Rivers Gallery for allowing me to create these videos, and Megan for all her help with Accessibility Week. If you want to find out what software I used and other softwares you can use, you'll find links in the description, as well as some of my social media, my art portfolio, if you want to see some of the other work I've done. And I hope everybody has a great day. Thanks again.